Welcome in for Verticals Podcast, episode 135, here on this October 14th, 2025, high out top, a Chamber of Commerce, Jacksonville, Florida. Just absolutely beautiful out there. After the long summer, hot days, afternoon storms, I think us, especially us here in Florida, finally having some dry, cooler air for once. Chef's kiss, just amazing. But, it's a nice day outside. It's going to be like this really for the next little bit here in Jacksonville. But, beautiful day out. Of course, we're high atop Jacksonville, Florida here on this Tuesday afternoon. Again, October 14th. Got a big show for you guys today. Got Week 8 college football predictions, the Tuesday poll, Week 7 edition, Coaching Carousel update. And then we have Bucs 49ers reactions. So a lot of things to talk about today. I had something in my mouth there. A lot of things to talk about today. Got a jam-packed show as usual. I mean, we have a lot of things to talk about, a lot of things to predict, a lot of games to predict. And, of course, the last time we talked officially on the show, we had, of course, James Franklin's been fired. We had the games that took place this past weekend. We did our recap show and a video on James Franklin on the YouTube channel. So just go check it out. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure you do check those out, because that's our recap show and any breaking news stuff. We'll do it on YouTube only. So just make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're on Spotify, and then vice versa. If you're on YouTube and want to continue supporting the show, subscribe to our podcast feed on Spotify. For Verticals Podcast on Spotify, X, Twitter. Also subscribe over there as well. Well, not subscribe, just follow. But big show today. Got all the things to cover. Again, this show is free, independent media. Never talked to an advertiser before, unless it's one that we trust. We're opening the I guess we're extending the olive branch, there we go, to any advertisers that we trust. But for the most part, independent media. This is not behind a paywall. This is not on a Patreon. So this show is completely free of charge. And that's how it should be. I think for a lot of folks who would prefer to have their show readily available, or a show that they like readily available, I think that would make sense. But that's the way we do it here. That's our policy. So that's never going to change, regardless of whatever happens. So again, subscribe. That's all I need you guys to do. All right, let's get into it. Week 8, college football predictions. We have a ton of big games, especially in the SEC now. For the games we don't get to, which is unfortunately a lot of these are SEC-based games. There's like Holy War, BYU, Utah going on. We'll cover that on the Thursday show, so just look out for that. So, any games that we do not cover here, like BYU, Utah, USC, Notre Dame, they'll be on the Thursday show. So when I cover that on today's show, we're doing mostly the SEC games because those are the ones that are going to get the most traction. I'm not an SEC homer, but I do understand that those are the games that get the most views. At least the ones that get the most traction, if you will, especially when it comes to previewing the game. So, what do you think of, as we get started here? What do you think of, asking you, the audience, what do you think of LSU at Vanderbilt? I think this is a noon kickoff on ESPN, I believe. Let me go check that. Pretty sure it's a noon kickoff. I have to double check here. It's usually times can change. I'm pretty sure it's a noon kickoff. Let me see here. Go through their schedule. It is a noon kickoff on ABC. So I believe, is that the first time since, I know they did it in 2020, but outside of 2020, is this the first time that a Vanderbilt game to this magnitude has been on ABC? I know, actually, take that back. It was, Tennessee game was under last year, but in terms of the game of this magnitude, first time ever. Also, probably the biggest game in Vanderbilt history as well. And it's the number 17th team in the country versus the number 10 team in the country, according to the AP poll. So these are two very quality teams, obviously, and of course we'll go over the Tuesday poll. But what do you think of LSU Vanderbilt? For me, if you're wondering what the FanDuel line is, by the way, of course FanDuel is not a sponsor of the show, but just to get us started here, the FanDuel line is Vanderbilt minus 2.5. Let me repeat myself, because that's to make sure you guys heard that correctly. The FanDuel line, the folks in Vegas, at this moment when I did my notes last night, it's Vanderbilt minus 2.5. Imagine telling yourself that 10 years ago. Of course, LSU 10 years ago would have been like the Leonard Fournette team with Brian Harris and all of them, plus Miles' final full year. Imagine telling yourself that LSU 10 years in the future would be going to Vanderbilt, facing not only a 5-1 Vanderbilt team, but also a ranked Vanderbilt team, but also not being favored. LSU not being favored. They're actually dogs on the road at Vanderbilt. Just imagine telling yourself that 10 years ago, but here we are. Modern college football. So, move the camera a little bit closer to me here. So, let's get to the LSU stuff first. We'll get to Vanderbilt. I guess we'll scratch that. We'll just go this way. So, I know a lot of folks were wondering about LSU potentially getting better last week because they're coming off a bye. Vanderbilt was actually off last week, so it's a bit of an opposite here. So Vanderbilt does have the scheduling advantage here. I'm pretty sure they're off a bye. Vanderbilt is. LSU is not because they played South Carolina. And everyone last week was making this big deal about, oh, man, I think LSU is going to be really better, much better next week against South Carolina. The offense is going to get better. The O-line is going to play a lot better. Garrett Nussmeier is going to look a little lot better. He's going to get healthier during the bye week. Well, then South Carolina came last week, at least the game came, and they played it, and not much was really different. Defense is good, whereas the offense has been bleh. So I worry about LSU here because I know with Vanderbilt, their emphasis is on scoring points and playing, they're playing their style of offense doesn't bode well for LSU's defense because while they have been good, good against teams like Clemson and some of the other some of the G5 schools that maybe don't have an elite offense. So they did well against the teams that don't have an elite offense, but when they face the offense as a pulse, being Ole Miss, they lost because their defense was on the field so much, the offense for LSU let them down. So that concerns me for LSU. Defensively, even though I think they're good and I think they can out-athlete Vanderbilt, which is the biggest dispersion, I think, of either of these teams, the talent composite. But it's just talent. That's just one piece of the pie here in a game like this. And I think LSU defensively, they're on the field a lot, and their offense continues to, their offense being what it just is what it is. It's not going to change at all. That's why, going back to last week, that's why I was questioning whether or not LSU was really going to improve in the bye week with their offensive line, Garrett Nussmeier. It just is what it is. There's nothing, nothing else to really say about it. It just are what they are. And so with that being said, we're going on the road again with Vanderbilt playing their style of offense they want to play. It concerns me that if this LSU offense is going to be what it's going to be, where they're not going to score above like 14 to 17 points, this could be a long day for that defense. Because as long as that defense continues to stay out there and consistently having to be put out there after the offense either turns the ball over or they go 3 and out, the more and more that defense is going to get tired. And I'm concerned about that because Vanderbilt, again, even though they're less talented at LSU and they don't have the same type of athletes, their offense is made to expose teams that have, in a situation like this, of teams that have their defense, being on the field constantly and they're getting tired, and Vanderbilt can break off a big run, right? We saw that against Bama last year. We sort of saw it against Bama again this year. So if you're Vanderbilt, I guess you better hope that the LSU offense is still just as bad and just as terrible as it's been all year, which is not really hard to believe. But as for Vanderbilt, sort of, I guess their side of things, what concerns you about them is something that a lot of folks have talked about, which is before the Bama game, they played, Virginia Tech, Georgia State, an FCS team, another G5, that they hadn't really scaled up yet in competition. And, they were 5-0 going to that Bama game. They're top 25, as they should be, right? They're and look, it's not, you can't blame them for playing their schedule. They're playing their schedule, even though it was a very, weak non-conference schedule. But, it is Vanderbilt. You got to find your wins somewhere. So, at least for schools like that, I can understand why they would do that. So we, being the folks in the college football industry, wondered what would happen to Vanderbilt once they began to scale up in competition, right? You go from playing G5s in Virginia Tech, who was dead for all intents and purposes, and, of course, you have interim coach now, to playing Bama, LSU, and Texas eventually, teams like that, teams that actually have a pulse offensively, or not pulse offensively, but just a pulse in general and have better athletes than you. That's what I worry about here for Vanderbilt, because Vanderbilt does not have the athletes to necessarily compete with LSU. But then again, I go back to the LSU offense and go, well, if Vanderbilt can again, if they can play up to a certain level and frustrate that LSU offense like most teams have this year, and then maybe Diego Pavia and company can, get the offense going. They can break off some big runs and sort of wear out this Tennessee, or not Tennessee, they plan to play in the year. This LSU defense, which has been the stronghold for them, everything's possible for them. Because again, going back to the LSU, the longer your defense is having to win you games, the more and more frustrated they're going to be. Because the offense, as it is going to probably continue to be bad, they're not going to help you win this game. Again, I think the minimum points here for your team to score, I think it's about, 28-24 probably, or 28-24 points plus. I don't trust LSU to do that. I trust Vanderbilt to do it because I've seen them do it before. Even going back to last year. I know it's not, the right thing to use the old cliche of going back to last year and whatnot, but most of these guys on the Vanderbilt offense, or really the team in general, are all back from last year for the most part. So you can't use it for teams like Vanderbilt. So I've seen them do it before. But what I also can't get out of my head is, again, this whole thing about LSU being so more athletic, especially on the defense, and just out-talenting Vanderbilt. And we saw this a little bit last year, too, when they played like Texas, I believe Vanderbilt did, when they were also ranked. Another big game in Nashville. Texas kind of took care of business. I think the final score was like 37-16. So they're able to pull away because they were able to out-athlete Texas, and, or to out-athlete – not Texas, to out-athlete Vanderbilt, and Texas was able, of course, they had to pulse last year on offense, and they had a good assortment of offensive weapons, and so they were able to do that. But then again, I don't know if LSU can do that. Because I don't trust their offense. I trust their defense, but I also don't trust their defense to continue to have the same intensity every single week, given how bad the offense is struggling. And, again, it's one of these teams that, one side of it's one of these teams where it's disproportionately sort of levied towards one side of the football being good, while the other side is just continues to struggle. And I worry about that. Go back to example I've used before about a team like that, a team where it's been where one side of the ball is better than the other, is Auburn in 2018. Their offense that year was most part garbage, while their defense is pretty good. And unfortunately, as the season went along, that Auburn defense started to wear out and kind of, I'm going to say quit, but there were certain moments where they did quit in certain games. And so I worry about that with LSU. Not to mention they're on the road and you're going into, albeit it's not the most intimidating environment in the SEC, being Vanderbilt. Still, even with the stadium renovations, I mean, those fans show up. There's no doubt. So I expect them to show up. Again, the FanDuel line here is Vanderbilt -2.5. College Football Nerds, their model, which I think I'm going to put in the description on YouTube. So if those of you who are interested in going on there, Josh and Daniel, they make that model free. You don't have to sign up for anything. I know last year you had to put in your Google account. They got rid of that. So it's free to the public. So, pray your hands that they keep that free, because that's a really nice model to have, especially now we're, deep in the season. But their model has this as a pick'em, which is interesting. So their model thinks this is going to be a very close game. Now, technically, I was like Vanderbilt 0.7 or something like that, but, to make it simpler, it's basically a pick'em. So I went back and forth on this. Originally, I actually picked Vanderbilt to win the game outright. But given what I just mentioned, and using that Texas game last year as an example, when Texas sort of came in and out-athleted Vanderbilt, I think LSU can kind of do that. But then again, I just said earlier, I don't trust their offense. But I also understand, that offense might be really bad right now. This is going to be the easiest defense that they will face in the SEC this year. And even me, the skeptic of LSU defensively, or on terms of the offense, now defensively I'm not a skeptic. Being a skeptic of the LSU offense, I believe that they can match up with Vanderbilt pretty easily. I think they do. Obviously they out-athlete them, but I think they can actually move the football. I think they can score. I do also expect the offensive line to still be shaky. The same with Garrett Nussmeier. But I think they can do just enough to where I do believe they win this game, and I believe they slightly cover. I can definitely make the argument, where I just did make the argument for Vanderbilt, which is why I was I was in a bit of a conundrum in picking this game. But I'm going to pick LSU to win. I think they're going to cover. So hopefully I'm not wrong about that. Get some water real quick. We'll move on to this next game, which is suspiciously not being talked about a whole lot. Besides me and Josh Pate, we will talk about OU going to South Carolina here in a moment. I'll mute here on YouTube, then we'll continue on. So. All right, we're back. Oklahoma at South Carolina. I believe this is an afternoon game on SEC Network. I'll have to check here real quick just to be sure that that is a correct fact. Usually we have a tendency to get these wrong. Yes, it is a noon, actually, a little bit afternoon. Pick off there on ESPN or on SEC Network. I believe that's going to be I wonder who is calling this game. I don't think they've announced it yet. Yeah, it is. It's going to be Taylor Zarzar, Matt Skimscum, and Alyssa Lang. A big fan of all of them, so they're calling this game. Welcome to Cocktober. Well, technically the introduction was the last week, but grant you, LSU ended up winning by 10, although very misleading. But this is really a Cocktober here. South Carolina at home. Grant you, they're having to play like 3 straight ranked opponents, so it sounds good, but it also does sound really, really bad. I mean, at least 2 ranked opponents back-to-back weeks. So they get Oklahoma this week, and they get Bama next week. So congratulations. You're rewarded by playing Oklahoma, or you're rewarded from playing Oklahoma to now you're going to be facing Bama next week. So good luck with that. Not to mention they play like Ole Miss and A&M, I think in consecutive weeks. So it doesn't get that much better. But luckily for South Carolina, it's at home. It's in Cocktober. So we have 2 weeks here, 2 weeks of Cocktober at home that they can beat, or at least have the opportunity to beat a ranked team. We've seen it happen before. They beat Auburn, I believe, in 2020 during Cocktober. I know it was a little bit after, but borderline Cocktober and regular November. They beat A&M last year. So there's a history of them doing this. It's not just like me and Josh Pitt making up some stupid phrase. No, it's a real thing. Cocktober is a real thing. And can they take advantage of it? Well, it's going to be very, very hard here. I mean, the line on this game, or at least it's going to be very hard to see South Carolina having a lot of offensive success. Even though the line on this game, by the way, is 4.5 Oklahoma. Golf clap for the folks over there in Vegas respecting Cocktober, because if that was, if it wasn't South Carolina or it wasn't Cocktober, I guarantee that line's a lot bigger. I'm sarcastic here, but still, I mean, look, you're on the road to the SEC. It's South Carolina, their biggest home game of the year so far. They have not had a major road or a major home game this year, frankly. So they haven't. I mean, a lot of folks probably haven't had a chance to see them probably since that Vanderbilt game, more likely, or even, not even that, maybe that Virginia Tech game, week 1, back when they were ranked, by the way, in the top 10, which seems like a long time ago. But what's the recipe for South Carolina here? If they were actually to pull this off in Cocktober, they need Lenore Sellers to play the game of his life. Kind of like last year when they beat Texas A&M. But it's going to be difficult. Oklahoma is a much better defense than I think LSU at times. You're going against Brent Venables, someone who is, I think, one of the best defensive play callers in the country, active defensive play callers in the country in college football. Certainly one of the best. I mean, he is. There's a reason why a lot of those folks have a lot of faith in him and Norman, even though people will say he's on the hot seat. So that's going to be difficult. And not to mention, South Carolina can't run the football. Traditionally, their running backs, their wide receiver room outside of Nick Harbor is bleh. So that's what's going against them. But it's William Bryce Stadium during Cocktober. Now, unfortunately, it's at noon, so it's not an evening game. But still, I have a feeling, a seeking suspicion, that those fans will still show up. Even with the record they have right now, even though they were a top 15-ish team, a top 10 team going into the year, and they've fallen on hard times, those fans are still going to show up. As people say, like them in Mississippi State, South Carolina fans and state fans, while their programs are severely under-resourced, not really that great historically, though I think South Carolina, at least under Spurrier, were very consistent. Those fans cheer like hell, man, and those fans will show up. They showed up last year multiple times. The LSU game, famously, A&M. Those people over there in Columbia and all across the state of South Carolina, those guys will show up. If you're a Gamecock fan, they will show up, and those fans will show up. The students will show up. I have no doubt about that. They will show up. Can the rest of their team show up? Can guys on the offense step up? Can any of those receivers step up? That's the question for South Carolina. Even defensively too. Those guys need to step up. I think for South Carolina to win this game somehow, some way, even though the spread's 4.5, they need Lenore Sellers to be the reason why they win this game. Him running around, him throwing the football. I mean, he has gotten better over the past. Even though they have not won other games, he's gotten better. I mean, he's played a lot better. He's not turning the football. He's not turning the ball over that much. I mean, he has looked a lot better than he did last year. I mean, we've come a long way from the game against Illinois in the bowl game last year. So it's been a long journey, but he has improved. But Oklahoma is a much better team, much better athletes. They have a good defense again. I think they're even better than LSU. To a certain extent. Now, if you're a South Carolina fan, you better hope that John Mateer, the one you saw last week, shows up in Columbia, because last week John Mateer kind of showed you who he is. And it's not a bad thing. I mean, give him my this there. Give credit where credit is due to Bud Elliott from Cover 3 saying we're not really. Well, he wasn't like denying the hype around John Mateer. He was sort of kind of pushing the brakes a little bit, which I kind of agree with him a little bit. There's a lot of things that he does that is great, but there's a lot of things that John Mateer does that is not great, like the sidearm weird crap and his throwing motions very odd, often at like pro material. I think it's very clear, and I agree with him. He's not coming. He is coming back to Oklahoma. He's not going to the draft. Like I don't think any team in the NFL would be drafting him right now. Just putting it out there, so folks can stop saying he's going to the NFL. He's not. Okay, at least not this year, based on what we have seen so far in his performance against, even in some of their wins, quality wins, like their win over Michigan, the win over Auburn. It's like, I mean, he didn't play all that great, to be honest with you. And then last week, the real John Mateer kind of showed. Well, not the real John Mateer, but just the John Mateer we feared we were going to see, especially when he faced better competition. We saw it happen last week against Texas. The good thing for John Mateer is that South Carolina is not Texas. But I also understand that this is the first time that Oklahoma is actually traveling on the road to a team not named Temple. And I know last week they technically were on the road over there in Dallas, but that's a neutral site game, and technically it's not really far from Norman. So tried and true, this is their first real road test, obviously, right? I mean, again, we don't count the Temple game, we don't count OU Texas. This is their first time on the road. How will they react? How is Oklahoma going to embrace Cocktober on the road? Because they felt it last year, they felt it last year when they lost them at home. I believe that was in October, right? So if I'm not mistaken. So they've already experienced it before. They experienced what it looks like to lose, losing in Cocktober. So, but they haven't faced it on the road yet. They have not been to Williams-Brice. Now, luckily, their coach has been here before, Brent Venables as a coordinator, but it's been a while. So that concerns me for Oklahoma. They're going on the road for the first time, a true road game. It's a team that circles this, and I guess the game against Bama as their Super Bowl, and it's Cocktober. So I am concerned about that. Very concerned. Given what I've seen from John Mateer and, the fact that this is his first big road game, is the John Mateer we saw, against OU or against Texas going to show up here? Again, luckily they're facing a worse team, at least talented team, but they're going into a very, very hostile environment. Now, let's check out the Fano number again. Again, that's Oklahoma minus 4.5. The CFB Nerds model has it OU minus 11.6, which is interesting. I have a lot of respect for Shane Beamer. I have a lot of respect for Cocktober, if you can't tell. I will also have a lot of respect for Williams-Brice Stadium. Never been there before. I've seen it on TV. I can already tell that place is, again, going to be rocking on Saturday. The fans will show up. The students are obviously going to show up. Will their team show up? Will anyone on the offense, besides Lauren Sellers, step up? Will someone like Nick Carver have a big game? Will anyone on the defense get a crucial stop late in the game? I don't know. Especially on the offensive side of the ball for South Carolina. I don't know. I mean, Lenore Sellers can only do so much. And there's a reason why they've been losing all these games is even with some of them being competitive, they don't have help on offense. They can't run the football. We got to restart that. They can't run the football traditionally. Their wide receivers suck. Granted, they got some separation against Missouri But even then, they still, they win the game and they still look bad. So, again, you're facing a much better defensive team, or probably the best defense you faced all year in OU and Brent Venables. So, I am, unfortunately, going to say go OU to win, and I'm going to take them to cover. And I know it's going to happen, too. I don't know if the PR folks or the communication folks over there in Columbia are watching this, but I guarantee you if any of those folks from the PR team and marketing team stumble upon this, I guarantee you're going to use this clip probably from my show, but I don't care. I'm sick about my pick. I don't feel all that good about it, but yeah, I'm picking OU to win. I think they cover, but then again, come Sunday night when we're not Sunday night, Saturday night when we do our recap show, I could look, I could have big all over my face because I picked the wrong team to win. Again, it is October. Be aware of that. Hopefully, the folks in Norman understand that because I bit you last year at home. Now you're going on the road. All right, let's see here. Next game, we have two more here, the two big ones. Tennessee at Alabama. This is the 3:30 game on, that's the night game. Night game on ABC. I believe it's Sean Ghana, Greg Hack, William McGrath doing this game. How about that? Back-to-back weeks of that crew doing the Saturday night game on ABC. Not Herbie and Fowler. This one to me is very, very, very weird. So I guess to get started, the FanDuel line is Bama minus 9.5. Pretty significant, even against what people are considering a top 15, top 12 type team in Tennessee. So that has been interesting that the area have a big number on this. Now I think part of it home field, and also the other piece of the puzzle is not South Carolina, Tennessee defensively, which is probably where I'm going to start at here. Tennessee defensively, almost said South Carolina, man. October must be on the mind. Tennessee defensively has a bit of a disadvantage here. They're going to struggle Saturday. There's no doubt in my mind. They're going to struggle. Bama, in terms of their receiving room, they're going to have a chance to cook here. I mean, yes, I know Ryan Williams has been missing, if you will, quote unquote missing. Has not been targeted that much. Hasn't had a huge season like we thought he would be. He's still there. He can have a big game. Could this be it? I don't know. At least specifically with him, but I do think generically these Bama receivers, where it's Isaiah Horton, Jeremy Bernard, Ryan Williams, whomever it's going to be, they're going to be able to feast on this Tennessee secondary. I kind of feel like it's pretty bad. I mean, again, go back to the Syracuse game, go back to the Georgia game, even last week against Arkansas. Not very good in terms of the secondary for Tennessee. I've been saying that since that game against Syracuse, not Virginia Tech. Jeez, I can still think about South Carolina. Even going back to that game against Syracuse, I just didn't. I wasn't very confident in Tennessee's secondary. I'm still not, and I think Bama should be able to take advantage of it. They should be able to, much like they were able to against Missouri. Same thing. I think they should be able to feast on this Tennessee secondary. Now, I believe, to me, that is the key component here for Bama. Is can those receivers take advantage of that susceptible secondary? Not to mention, can they have Ty Simpson, stay clean in the pocket, right? Not have him be pressured. So when he's not pressured and he has time to throw the football, the guy is deadly accurate, and not to mention he can also move around and scramble. So if I'm Tennessee, big worry there in the secondary. Now, for Tennessee to win the game, I think it's pretty simple. Joey Aguilar, not offense, needs to have the game of their life. The last time that Tennessee won this game in Tuscaloosa, way before I was born. I was born in 2002, probably around either just after that or before. I have to go back and look at the Wikipedia page, but at the very least, I was a young child when that happened. Either that or I just wasn't born yet. So it's been a long time since they've been able to do this on the road. Now they've done it at home, Tennessee against Bama the last two times, and this is different. It's on the road. The last time Bama lost a home game in general period was, if you recall, in 2023 against whom? Texas. Not Texas in the SEC, but Texas Big 12. That's how long ago that was. Already 2 years. But the last time Bama lost at home to an SEC opponent, guess. And no, it's not Texas again, because that was Big 12. They were not a current conference member. I'm talking about a current conference member or a or Bama, the last time Bama lost to a current conference member in the SEC. We have to go all the way back to the last decade, 2019 against LSU. That's how long it's been. Is Tennessee 2019 LSU? No, but this Bama team's not 2019 Bama. They're obviously not. I think Bama, much like Tennessee, I think they're susceptible a little bit. I don't think they're necessarily clean, but they can show up when they want to. They can show up at moments, right? You have the game against Georgia, the game against Missouri last week. You sort of saw what this Bama team can look like. And their secondary is really good. So I'm not expecting this Tennessee offense to have success throwing the football. I think obviously, look, this Tennessee, Veron Shoot, Baylor Brile stuff, they emphasize running the football. So that's their bread and butter. Now look, if they want to try to throw the football with Vagler, obviously he has the potential to do that. I just don't know if he can do it against his secondary. Look, I'll just say it up front. Georgia's secondary, but way worse than Bama's. Like way worse. And they were able to take advantage of it. But this is not Georgia's secondary. This is Bama's secondary, and they're really, really good. Not to mention it's on the road, and, it's the first time I believe Tennessee's really been in a hostile environment like this. So that's my big concern. I don't know if this team can really do that, or at least perform well on the road, because we haven't really seen it yet a whole lot this year. They haven't. I can double check here, and they have not, at least to my knowledge, been on a major road test, at least to an extent of Bama, at least to that caliber. The last time they're on the road was against Mississippi State, but that was a overtime game. But at least at this caliber, they have not faced a team of this caliber on the road yet, which worries me for Tennessee. But then again, I also worry about, I guess this little scenario here. What if Bama just starts out slow? Because again, like I mentioned last week, Bama, this is their third straight game against a ranked team that I have South Carolina next week. How many times have you can say, at least in your recent memory of watching college football, have you seen a team do that? Very rare. But now with the way the conferences are operating now with no divisions, this will happen. A lot of teams are going to be facing multiple ranked teams over a span of multiple weeks, and without a bye week in between, by the way. So how does Bama respond to that? Because again, this is multiple 4 weeks, I believe now, 4 weeks in a row that they have faced a team ranked in the top 25 as a quality opponent. Will they show up? Are they fully healthy? Well, at least not healthy to where they're injured, but at least healthy in terms of their stamina, fatigue. Is that fully there? Because I don't know if it is or not. So that does concern me for Bama if they're still somewhat gruely and sore and it's not fully there. Tennessee can get you even that secondary, which is really, really good. If they're not 100% there, Tennessee can still get you. Because I think Tennessee, those receivers are very, very underrated. They can jump up and get balls. Clearly, we saw that against Georgia again. Even though I think Georgia's secondary is way worse than Bama's, they still have potential to do it. And Tennessee can also, by the way, still run the football to a certain extent. I still trust Josh Heupel as a good play caller, but yeah, I think that's really a big key there is Bama's health, just in general, because again they've been facing so many, ranked teams and been in so many big games. At least in the last few weeks. And also, can Tennessee or can Bama's secondary lock down Tennessee's offense? That, to me, is going to be the key here. Not to mention, I think Tennessee's O-line, very susceptible. I think they can get here in this situation. So that's also another position group I'm also paying attention to. Let's look at what the model has from CFB Nerds. So their model, again, the reminder, the FanDuel line is Bama minus 9.5. The CFB Nerds model has it as a pick'em, an actual pick'em, tied. So because of that, and because of my respect for Josh Heupel, and my also acknowledgement that Bama has, again, been very grueling last few weeks here, multiple big games, I'm concerned here a little bit. I'll just put it out there. I'm concerned. Even though I laid out, points to where you should be confident in Bama, right? The secondary, Bama, wide receiver room taking advantage of that Tennessee secondary. But then again, I can't get this out of my mind that they have been just on this grueling path of multiple ranked teams, multiple big games over the past month. It seems like that's got to be tiresome. And if it doesn't come this week, it could very easily come next week against South Carolina. Just looking ahead here. So I'm going to pick Bama to win, but I think Tennessee's going to really cover here. So yeah, I'm going to take Bama to win. Tennessee to cover. Very concerned here, even though I just laid out the reasons why Tennessee should lose the game and how Tennessee would be able to beat them. I just wonder if this taxing, gruelingness of them having to play multiple, big games every single week, it feels like it's got to catch up at some point, right? Again, either this week, next week against South Carolina, again during October. I don't know, just something kind of feels odd here about this game and the spread as well. I don't know, it feels odd. Last game here, Ole Miss at Georgia. This is the revenge game for Georgia. They lost to them last year. This is the 3:30 game on ABC. Chris Fowler and Kirk will be calling the game. So, of course, Peter will be there. Dog. Again, this is revenge for Georgia. Revenge for them. Last year, they lost to them. And the last time, of course, Ole Miss came here was yet again another major top 10 game. And they got destroyed. Ole Miss did. That night in November, I believe. That jury day in November. How would Ole Miss pull this off? How would they do it? Much like Vanderbilt with Ole Miss, I wonder if it really is of them. Because, again, they're undefeated. They're a top 5, top 10-ish type team, according to the polls. Well, I respect what they've done so far, beating LSU and whatnot. But they haven't really been tested that much offensively, just at all, period. The LSU offense, we talked about earlier, they're, on the back of the milk carton. And they've also played a couple other teams that maybe haven't had a massive pulse. And they were able to dispose of them. Well, actually, check that. They have faced a team that has a pulse offense, or at least a somewhat pulse on offense. Washington State. That was a close game last week. Did anyone watch that game against Washington State? I'm sure most of you did not. I did. I did watch a little bit of it. Washington State did have a pulse, and they were able to move on that Ole Miss defense. So this Ole Miss team, they're Ole Miss saying, oh, they're not accessible. They're the Iron Curtain. They can totally just dominate teams. Washington State last week did it, and Georgia can do that. Georgia, even though I don't respect their secondary, which does concern me, especially with a Ole Miss team that has shown a tendency to be a lot better at throwing the football, especially with Trinidad Chambliss being the starter. Yes, I have finally learned how to say his name correctly. This Georgia wide receiver room, best thing that Ole Miss has seen this year, so far this year. I mean, that's kind of obvious, and probably gonna be the best wide receiver room they will face all year. Period. I mean, Georgia is going to be able to sling it against Ole Miss. I feel very confident about that. Whether it's the wide receivers, the tight end, Austin Lucky, Gunnar Stockton should be able to do that. Of course, him running the football will also help. So that worries me for Ole Miss. The fact that they have, up until today, or at least, well, yeah, I guess at this point, besides Washington State, they have not faced a team that has shown a pulse on offense. LSU didn't. None of the other G5s LSU didn't have a pulse. Their other teams, their G5s or FCS didn't, but Washington State did. So that does concern me, that the fact that Ole Miss did play a team that did have somewhat of a pulse offensively, was able to challenge them, that concerns me. And luckily for Ole Miss, Washington State is far more less talented than any of the teams they faced. They're going to face in the SEC, even the worst teams. So for Ole Miss, yeah, I think in terms of kind of like Vanderbilt, them scaling up in terms of playing an actual offense, this scares me if I'm an Ole Miss fan. Not to mention it's a revenge game, and Kirby, for the most part in his revenge games, besides Bama, because that's a little bit different because they have a Bama problem. Kirby has done very well in these revenge spots against teams. Auburn in 2017, Florida multiple times, and they've lost to them. They've had revenge on them. So I feel very confident that I think those folks in that building understand what happened last year and how things went off the rails a little bit. I think they know that they have a real opportunity here to really take it to Ole Miss. I think they have a real opportunity to make an announcement that they are still a contender in this thing. Even though I have questions about them, their O-line's not necessarily great. Same with their defensive line. And that's not necessarily the Georgia standard. Nor is their secondary. And look, again, their secondary is very susceptible. They can't be got on. And I think Ole Miss can do it, but you're at home. And besides Bama, when was the last time Georgia lost to a team not named Bama? Last decade against South Carolina, who was, again, coached by Will Muschamp. That's how long ago that was. But then again, I also can't keep this on my mind, but Ole Miss, with Trinidad being a dual threat guy, Georgia's defense did get worked on against Ty Simpson, and Ty Simpson's a lot better than Trinidad as a complete quarterback. So that is a little bit concerning here for Georgia, as they are facing yet another dual threat quarterback, and even Joey Aguilar was able to put up some big numbers on them. So, but then again, one of those games was Bama, which Georgia has a psychological problem with, and the other was on the road. This is at home of a team that they do not have a psychological problem with. They've handled Blaine Kiffin for the most part fairly well since he's been there, except for last year. I think as we look at the FanDuel number here, FanDuel has that Georgia minus 7.5. Now, College Football Nerds has this Georgia minus 2.7, so a little bit closer here, which is interesting. I think this game in a lot of ways sort of mirrors that 2023 game, but also doesn't, because, that was college football a couple years ago, and things have changed, right? The depth on Georgia's roster, the depth everywhere across the sport, it's not the same anymore. And not to mention the talent. Talent just isn't the same. So I think Georgia will win the game, but they cover, but not cover like they did, last time they played them in Athens, which was, again, a couple years ago. I think they cover just very slightly. I still think it'll be a good game. I just, I think, again, the whole revenge thing, I think Kirby and them sort of, kind of using the Auburn game last week, sort of packaging it, I think, there's a possibility of using it as momentum to carry over. I think it's definitely possible. So, yeah, I think Georgia wins. Slight cover. I'm not too sure if they really blow them out. Ole Miss, I think Ole Miss can hang around. But, again, my fear with Ole Miss is that they, at least defensively, have not faced an offense with a pulse. And they faced one last week against Washington State. They got pushed around. And then may I remind you that Washington State team got destroyed by North Texas. So there's that. All right, Tuesday at Pullman, we have Coaching Carousel update. We have thoughts on the Bucs, Bucs game versus 49ers. So Tuesday Pull, week 7, we'll go for this pretty quickly. We'll start from 20. We'll count down from 25 all the way up to number 1. So 25 through 20. Michigan at 25. They're 4-2. USC 5-1. They're at 24. Utah 5-1. They're at 23. Cincinnati 5-1. 22. Nebraska 5-1 at 21. And then at number 20, Memphis undefeated still. They, by the way, play South Florida, a huge game. We'll talk about it on the Thursday show. All these teams, in my opinion, I think this is, at least if I were to fill an AP ballot, this is where I'll put them. A lot of these teams are very similar. I could make the argument for Michigan being bumped out, but, their losses are quality losses, and they're both, somewhat competitive, although the game against USC was not. I will say I think USC could be a little bit higher, but that profile of that team is very weird. Because they play Notre Dame this weekend. It's on the road. So we'll learn a little bit more about them when they get into situations like that, right? Going on the road and actually facing a very physical team and a very hostile environment. A real hostile environment. No disrespect to Illinois, but Notre Dame is a step up from Illinois, even though Notre Dame has lost 2 games. Cincinnati, I think they're a quality team. Now, they're not playing the Big 12, but they're pretty good. And look, they're a couple of weird, offensive possessions away from being undefeated, by the way. Because they had the chance to beat Nebraska. A lot of folks forget that. Nebraska's sort of the same thing. They're, they're one Cincinnati, a couple of good passes away from having 2 losses. And then Memphis, very good G5 team. The last, I believe, like them and Navy are the last 2 undefeateds in the G5 right now. All right, let's see here. 19 to 15. 19 to 15. Notre Dame at 19. 4-2. A little bit lower than the AP poll and the coaches poll. I kind of agree with Josh Payton. That's more of a projecting thing, which I understand why they're up there. Because, look, they should finish 10-2. But if we're looking at this as of right now, they being around like the 19, 25, 20 range, I think it's more appropriate. Also do agree with Bud Elliott, though. I don't even – if Notre Dame were to finish the season 10-2, I don't think they're in the playoff. Just to be honest with you, I think their strength of schedule and the fact that they will have several teams of probably having a losing record doesn't really hurt them, and it doesn't help too that their losses are to at least their opportunities to beat ranked teams, especially in really good ranked teams. They lost both of their games, so if I'm an Irish fan, very very concerned about our playoff chances. All right, let's see here. Continuing here, 18 Texas at 4-2. They're back in the poll. Number 17 Virginia didn't really move that much. They didn't play. They're on a bye week. Missouri at 16 didn't fall that much. Got what I expected, so they should kind of stay right where they are. Then number 15 Vanderbilt off a bye week. All right, let's continue all the way from 14 to 11 here. Then we'll get in the top 10. 14 Oklahoma bumped down a little bit. I think the Auburn and Michigan losses sort of bring them down just a little bit, but not much real change in my opinion. So then them at 14 makes sense. 13 Tennessee, again, love their offense, defense, not so much, but we'll see them against Bama this week. South Florida, number 12, very high on them, still very high. They're number 12. They're number 11, LSU. Frankly, I could have been a little bit lower on them, but I still trust their defense, okay? I still trust their defense. I still I think that's the reason why they will continue to win games, but they will also lose a lot of games too. All right, top 10 time. Number 10, Oregon. Now, I hear you in Eugene and all across the state of Oregon. I hear you screaming that you're all the way down number 10. I get that, but here's the thing. I think, much like Oklahoma, maybe we have to recalibrate our expectations. Some of the Josh Page brought up a little bit over the past last few months about us having to recalibrate our expectations because of the new world of college football. But in terms of Oregon, with Penn State sort of being what they are, and the fact that they have faced really teams of no pulse, in terms of whole body of work, do we think different of them? I think I do slightly, but it's not that much. You're still a good team. I mean, look, you did dispose of Oklahoma State like you're supposed to. Good. The Penn State thing, look, is that more dynamics? Sure. If Penn State and them were to play on a neutral field, I guarantee you we're going to be, maybe like a 10-point favorite? Probably. But, yeah, Oregon being at 10, it's whatever. It's fine. But, again, much like Notre Dame, do we have to think of them as, or at least, did they just miss their opportunity to get a huge win against a good team and they missed it? I don't know. Let's continue here. So, number 9, Georgia Tech, bye. So, they didn't really move that much. Georgia, number 8, moved up just a little bit. Ole Miss, number 7, they dropped. Actually, I don't think, did they move at all? Looking at the last weeks. No, they stayed right where they are. Bama, though, did move up to number 6. They are one of the bigger movers of the week. Besides them in Indiana. But let's see here. So top 5, only one change, and you'll probably guess who it is. Number 5, Texas A&M. Texas Tech at 4. Indiana jumps all the way to number 3, just like the AP and the coaches. Could have had them at, in the top 2. But again, if you have to recalibrate our expectations for Oregon, must translate to Indiana. So if Oregon was, had beaten a Penn State team that's still good and still has James Franklin as their coach, maybe we think a little bit differently. But that's why we do rankings, not power ratings. So Indiana at number 3. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 1, Miami. No changes there. Miami was on a bye again, but they play again this week on Thursday, I believe, or Friday. They play during the week, not on the weekend. So that is the Tuesday poll for this week. All right, coaching carousel update. We'll do this and we'll wrap up with Bucs. 49ers reaction. Of course, James Franklin was fired. Of course, you have a lot of other jobs open, like UCLA is open right now, but we've done that for a while. So my thoughts on the whole James Franklin thing, if you want to know about it, go to the YouTube page and go to the videos. We did a video on it Sunday night reacting to it. But just in general here, a little bit of a message here, I guess, for any of these coaching searches, especially the big ones now, since we're starting to get some of the big ones, some of the big boys starting to open up. Just be careful where you get your information from. I've seen a lot of stuff right now all across X, Twitter. And look, some of these come from the official folks, but I'll just say this. In terms of the way these searches are ran, at least how you think they're run, it's not how you think they're run. Like just because a writer like Pete Akos or, Chris Lowe or some of these guys, not targeting them, just using an example, or heck, even me, if I was a, professional journalist, just because some of these journalists are putting out new articles on coaching searches or new videos and whatnot, that doesn't mean there's actual movement happening. It's just them putting out an article, okay? There's nothing happening at the moment. It's just an article being published, okay? Not to mention, just be careful where you get your information from. My advice, especially for any of these in these big head coaching searches, just assume you know nothing, okay? Like, there's a lot of, rumors are going to run like mildew, okay, throughout from now all the way until January. So just keep that in mind. I mean, again, there's a lot of names being thrown out, which is like, okay, like, cool, you can talk about those, but with Penn State and these big jobs, we'll see. We'll let it play out. But at the moment, nothing credible in terms of anything happening with Penn State. And there's a lot of names being thrown out. You know what they are, especially been paying attention to that side, or at least that story. We don't know yet, okay? There's a lot of things we don't know. There's a lot of things we do know, but there's a lot of things we especially do not know. Virginia Tech, though, a bit of an interesting thing. So, according to Andy Bitter from Virginia Tech sportswar.com, their site, who, they seem pretty credible, obviously. I was wondering, one of the posts that was made yesterday for Andy Bitter wrote that I guess their athletic director from the AD over there at Virginia Tech was supposed to have a local interview of the media. It's been canceled. We don't know necessarily why, but there's been some speculation maybe it has something to do with a coaching interview. Maybe I could be in play here. I don't know for sure. Again, that's just being out there, but there's real traction on that. Definitely seems like Virginia Tech's probably going to go towards the G5 route for head coach. It seems like, but that one we don't know yet. Another one that's been opened up, it's a new one. We touched on this, I believe, a little bit on Sunday. Is a UAB. So Trent Dilfer is out. Kind of sucks to see that UAB program be where it's at after Bill Clark retired. So that is interesting to see what happens there at UAB. Now, as for jobs that are going to open soon, UF, obviously, Bill Napier, as I mentioned on Twitter, I think him, Luke Fickle at Wisconsin, Hugh Freeze at Auburn, they're on borrowed time right now. I think it's only a matter of, it's not a matter of if, but when they do. There is a regime change there for all those teams. It's happening eventually. I know Josh Pate brought up the Missouri game for Auburn. It doesn't matter. Win or lose, I don't think Hugh Freeze is back next year. That's just my personal opinion. Same with Bill Napier, same with Luke Fickle. Now, as for one that has a bit of a question mark on it, that's Florida State. I know a lot of folks, are obviously not happy with Norvell. We talked about this on the Saturday night reaction. Well, I get the frustrations, right? The fact that Norvell has had multiple instances of having these massive losing streaks, including last year and a couple years before that, back in 2022. Well, I get that's the problem, and the fact that they have never taken these lower tier ACC teams seriously, which makes no sense because the conference is so bad. Look, I agree with Bud Elliott and those guys over at the Nolecast. Look, Norvell's not coming back. Like, Norvell, his tenure there is coming to an end. Is he going to be fired this year? I don't think so. I mean, look, there's a reason why they brought in all those transfers and whatnot, and brought in Gus Malzahn and Tony White. They're there not to win a national championship. They're there to save jobs. I mean, hell, even Tom Castellano said it back during the summer. I mean, that's their purpose, is to save everyone's jobs. I don't know what next year's going to look like, though, and that's scary. So, Norvell, he's not getting fired this year. I mean, look, it's the same thing that happened to Malzahn at Auburn. Norvell got a massive extension after 2023 because he was linked to that Bama job, which turns out, which was actually real. But, yeah, I don't expect him to be back probably after next year, but he'll probably be back next year, and then I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there next year. But then again, we saw Penn State pull the plug, and that was a pretty expensive buyout. So who knows? I guess anything's possible now. Let's see here. Bucs 49ers reaction. Huge win for Tampa. Huge win. I said this on Twitter. I was just so happy. I mean, it's the first time that they have beaten San Francisco 49ers since I was in high school, and that was like 4 or 6 years ago. That was a long time. Have done it this decade. They were close last year. All the other times they've been over there to San Fran on the West Coast. Not a competitive game, so I'm so happy they were able to finally get a win. Like I've been saying, man, the bread must rise, man. The bread must rise, and also a couple things I want to address in terms of, we'll save those towards the end. I mean, talk about Baker and his ability to, take control of games. It's just incredible to watch, and really just seeing him improve, right? Seeing him mature since he's been in Tampa has been fantastic to watch. And even with the injuries, too, with Mike being out, Chris being out, Bucky Irving, I mean, he won't be playing, by the way. I mean, Chris Godwin are obviously out for the game against Detroit, which is could be a potential preview for the NFC Championship game in January. But even with them being out, and now with Mecca being out or went out during the game Sunday, I think he probably could have came back, but because of the Monday night game and how significant that game is, I think it was probably wise to hold him out. Even with all those injuries, man, they still find ways to get guys open, right? Tez Johnson finally caught a huge ball, a huge touchdown. Keaton Allen had a very, very active game. So, I mean, they still have weapons on that team, although it's a little bit down the depth chart, but they're still there. They still have decent receivers that can step up. And once we get a lot of those guys back healthy, just imagine how better this team is going to look. I mean, it's incredible that they were able to do what they did with all the guys out. So, I mean, defense played pretty well, especially in the second half. I mean, Levante David getting a huge pick, a lot of big stops there. And look, even as a Bucs fan, as much as we hate the 49ers, especially recently when we're not able to beat them, I mean, that sucks to see Fred Warner go out. Bad leg injury, obviously he's out for the year. Sucks. I mean, they've had so many injuries on that team. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, though, I mean, getting all things considered, I thought he played fairly well, given how horribly injured that team is. But as I said on Twitter, and I've been saying this the last couple of weeks, I know a lot of folks hate Tampa. I get that. A lot of folks hate Tampa. A lot of folks sort of hate Baker because of his attitude and the way he carries himself, because he's not, a proper professional quarterback, at least in his mannerisms. I don't care, man. Like I've been saying on Twitter, don't tell us to be careful, because this team's not careful. No, we play with fire. It may not always end well, but don't be telling us to be careful, because we are not a careful team. We are very aggressive. What Todd has done, especially with the offensive coordinator hires over the years, not because they've been bad, the OCs, because they've been so good, because Baker's been so good. And, the play calling with Gizzard being there, I think he's gotten more comfortable doing it now, especially this far in the season. But, yeah, just don't tell us to be careful, man. And as mentioned, too, again, I know a lot of folks hate Tampa. I know a lot of folks don't like us, but we're here, and you have to deal with it. So, just an incredible year. I know next Monday game against Detroit, it's gonna be tough, no doubt. But like I said, this team, you're gonna have to deal with us now, and it's not just the flip side of Tampa's got to go to the Lions, and that's gonna be a very tough game, which is going to. But Tampa does exist too. So of course we'll preview that game on Thursday. We'll talk about it, but like I said, don't tell us to be careful. We're not a careful team. Tampa, they have taken on the personality of Baker, and that's a good thing. I mean, they have really taken on that personality. Todd's sort of taken on that same personality, as well as sort of that mentality of, we don't really care what you think of us. Yeah, you have to deal with us. And you can use a quote here from Indiana Jones in one of the movies. I believe it was in Last Crusade. Tampa's like a bad penny. They always show up. So, yeah, don't tell us to be careful. Don't tell us to be careful. We'll be back on Thursday to preview the rest of the games, to do upset alerts and preview Tampa Lions. So until then, be sure to follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to YouTube channel. Subscribe to a podcast feed, Spotify. Make sure to do that. Very important to support us and the channel and whatnot. It is just me doing the show, by the way. We don't have a whole team. But I'm literally my own HR person, my own producer, my own director, my own editor. I mean, I wear all the hats here. So it's just us doing it. So until Thursday, take care. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, Wednesday. And we'll see you guys on the next stream.